G'day, hi, and welcome. Oh, stop raining. Okay. All right. Today's video. Does pickup height, I can speak, does pickup height make a difference? Tune in. Let's find out. All right, so let's look at these pickups. Hopefully my GoPro won't screw up. So this one not too extreme, that one not too extreme, that one not too extreme. Holy crap, that one's extreme. Look at that. Look at that pickup height. That's pretty high. So I've been watching, maybe some of you guys watch this guy, maybe you don't. Spectre Studios, the guy's name's Glenn. Never met him, never talked to him. Seems like a cool guy. Usually has a lot of good advice, but sometimes I don't agree with him on everything. Yes, tone woods is a thing. Yes, pickups matter, but by how much? Everything's always about by how much, right? And for a lot of his arguments, it's based on one factor only: full saturated metal tone. On that argument, he's kind of right. And his main argument is always the speaker's the most important in your tone, which I would say is probably 90% correct. Because, you know, to him, the guitar doesn't matter, the pickups don't matter, tone woods don't matter. I don't know what his stance is on scale length, but to him it seems like, just use anything and it'll be fine. But it's really not like that. And I'm not trying to bash the guy. I'm just saying that's not what I'm getting out of it. I was supposed to work today, hence why I'm in my work clothes. But yeah, so I watched him doing an interview with a guy talking about pickup heights and does it make a difference in your sound. And it's like, I'm already like, yes, I've already experimented with this and over the years. And, I won't get into the difference in the pickups because, like, for example, most of those guitars you looked at have very similar pickups. So, yeah, there'll be very little difference between them. But if you take a single pole pickup like my classic 57s and my SGs and take these Alpha and Omegas, yeah, you'll notice a difference. Even probably in the mix pretty good if you listen long enough. The pickup heights, yeah, high output pickups. Most people used to have the belief, and I'd be self-included in that the higher the more output you have on your pickup, the better your pickup sound. But it doesn't work like that. It gives you something different. So if you have your pickups all the way up, you tend to get a muddier, beefier sound, and definitely punchier, definitely more overbearing, and you tend to lose clarity a bit. You also get a bit of a nasally sound, right, when you do that. So when you lower the pickups, you tend to lose the aggression and the attack and the punchiness and all that fullness to a degree, but you gain clarity. So the compromise with high output pickups, if you're going through a tube amp, you're going to get breakup all the way. Like, there's going to be no clean channel, right? Like my Flying V's like that. There's no such thing as a clean channel with that Flying V. You have to play so lightly to play clean. You can't just wail into it because you just get breakup. Even on a transistor amp, you'll get breakup just because the pickups are so hot. They're meant to be played really compressed, right? So we can get that full saturation. But the pickup height, for some people, they buy a guitar and they're like, oh, my guitar doesn't sound that great, so I'm going to buy another guitar. But they've never played around with the pickup heights. And not all pickups are fully adjustable. For example, these ones, you can't adjust the poles on them, but I'll keep that for another video. A lot of pickups are like that, where you can adjust the poles. A lot of pickups you can't, right? Depends on the type of pickup. But one of the things you could say for sure is when your pickups are all the way down, you get less aggression, less attack, cleans up, you get more headroom. Meaning kind of like before you get that peak distortion on your signal, it goes a lot long. You can play a lot harder for certain things. So let's say you're doing something like a really, and you're not just, if you do that with a high gain pickup or a high output pickup through an amp, you tend to peak the signal. So you'll lose your clean, you'll lose the headroom, right? Whereas when you're playing distorted, that's great because then you get the punchiness and all that. But then when you're in the mix, okay, and this is where again, does the guitar matter? Blah blah blah. Well, yeah, some guitars have a more clear sound than others. Some of that has to do with the tone woods. Some of that has to do with the bridge setup. Some of everything plays in, right? But when you're playing in the mix, okay, what sounds really great with your pickup's really high, then you get into the mix and it's just everything's muddy. You know what I mean? Like, because the bass, strangely enough, seems to add mud to the guitar a bit. You know what I mean? Because it's taking up a tonal range, and you might have an overlapping tonal range there. That if one's slightly muddy and the other one's slightly muddy, it kind of takes out that definition. Where if you have clarity in the guitar and the bass is nice and fat and round and muddy sounding or whatever, then that fills in the background for you. So you can get a definition between, or a polarization, or a contrast, pick your verbiage here, between the two sounds. So at that point, the clearer the pickups, the better. So one way to clear up your pickups, lower them down. One way to get more aggression out of your pickups, pop them up. The other thing is something that I have done in the past with other, like these are the highest gain pickups I've ever used, is the Alpha and Omegas, with the exception of those Duncan distortions, which have a higher mid-end cut, which really cut through, makes them like a really awesome thrash metal guitar. They're almost overbearing. But with those, what you can do if you find them overbearing, you take a high gain or high output pickup, lower it all the way down, it's still going to probably produce more volume and saturation and everything than a medium gain pickup or a medium output pickup. So there is an advantage to going that. George Lynch, he used to go with the idea with recording that go with the hottest pickup possible, but then he found he was frying out all his amps, right? Just because it was so hot that it just like it was too much. And sometimes less is more. And to give you the idea, I had this Ibanez Artcore, and this kind of goes with what George Lynch was saying, whereas when he went to lower output pickups, they weren't as great for live, but in the studio, you had all the clarity, you could saturate the crap out of them. It didn't matter. And you had all this clarity because they weren't overbearing, right? And they were a lot easier to control in the studio. So most guitars have a medium output pickup. Like most guitars, like my Jackson JS32, they call them the Jackson high output pickups. They're not. They're lower output than my classic 57s, which are about a medium output pickup in the Gibsons, right? But they clean up very nice, in the mix. So yeah, your pickups do matter for clarity. Or maybe you don't want the clarity. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you want to go for that old Eric Clapton kind of sound. Eric Clapton's SG days, where it's just that what they call the woman tone, where it's just this really overbearingly muddy sound, but the notes are like 10 feet thick and they sound really great. But your rhythm, but when you go to the rhythm, it kind of it's kind of a little bit overbearing. So finding that happy medium, you have to play around with the heights, because a lot of people, again, they buy a guitar, and the way I do it is I buy a guitar and I play it for a few months with the factory setup. And then after a few string changes, change the strings. Yeah, the strings will make a bigger difference probably in your tone. And I have experimented with many, many strings over the years. Even though I don't change my strings that much, I usually try a different brand. And then over time, you tend to say, okay, yeah, I think I really like these ones more, whatever. And sometimes you have to play things for a while before you can actually hear it, right? But yeah, it's something that if you're going to play around with it, do a little bit at a time. If you got headphones, that's the best way to start. Just start where your pickups are. Just go like maybe a half turn up, play for about a week with a half turn up, a half turn down, whatever, and just see what's there. Record with it, do the ABs. Little adjustments sometimes make big tweaks late down the road, right? And you might not understand what you're getting. And this is something that, it's like, yeah, pedal to the metal, balls to the wall, like my Jackson RR5T. That guitar records fairly clear. Like those Duncan SH6s are very clear. These Alpha and Omegas are the clearest pickups I've ever tried on any guitar ever. Like they are very clear for a high output pickup. The Gibson 500T is a pretty high output pickup, but they weren't as clear as this. They were clear, but they weren't as clear as this. And they definitely weren't as out front as the SH6 Duncan distortions. Maybe you don't need all that kind of firepower, right? If you're not playing metal, you really don't need something that aggressive. So let's say you have this and you're not really playing metal. Like again, you can lower them down and that'll sweeten them up. They still might be too much for you, especially if you're playing mostly clean. That's why there's a coil tap on this one. It really, I wouldn't say halves your volume, but it takes the overbearingness out of it when it's clean, right? So, there's that too, because you're basically going from, you're doing a coil split, so you're going from a humbucker to basically a single coil, right? So that makes a difference, but the height will sometimes take care of that problem for you. And again, play with it on headphones. Okay, that sounds right. And then play with it. You have to play at what I call stage volume or concert volume. How am I doing for time here? Can never see the clock on this thing. Yeah, I guess I'll make a part 2.